Good evening. It is so great to see everyone here this evening. I hope that you brought your Bibles and that you'll follow along with me. We're going to be in 1 Samuel tonight. 1 Samuel chapter 17. In 1 Samuel chapter 17, we're going to look at a great big giant problem that Israel was facing. And then after we look at the great big giant problem that Israel was facing, we're going to see that we too are going to face some giants in our lives. Now there may be different kind of giants, but we're going to face some giants that come along in our life. So if you will, begin in chapter 17, 1 Samuel chapter 17. And starting in verse 1, we can follow there. We can see that in verse 1, the Philistines had gathered their armies together for battle. And in verse 2, Saul, the king of Israel, and the Israelites had gathered their army for battle. And you can see in verse 3 that the Philistines were gathered on this side of the mountain. And on the other side of the mountain were the Israelites. And they're standing there and they're looking at each other and they're preparing for war. And then there went out a champion, verse 4, from the Philistines. This champion came out of the camp named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span long. This man is roughly 10 feet tall. You're looking at a pretty giant man, aren't you? Powerful. He had a helmet, verse 5, of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and that coat weighed 5,000 shekels of brass, which is roughly 126 pounds. So you're looking at a man 10 foot tall, covered in 126 pounds of armor. But that's not all. He had greaves of brass upon his legs, and a javelin, a target of brass between his shoulders. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam. And his spearhead weighed 600 shekels of iron. One bearing a shield went before him. So the tip of his spear, to give you an idea of how strong he had to be, was 15 pounds. So he's weaving this 15 pounds on the end of his spear as though it's nothing. This is something he's going to be able to grab and spin and throw at a moment's notice. So he's wearing over 100 pounds of armor. He's 10 foot tall and he's got a giant weapon. And he's looking at the armies of Israel. He stood and cried unto the armies of Israel and said unto them, Why are you come out set in battle to array? Am I not a Philistine, and you servants to Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. And if he be able to fight with me and to kill me, then we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him, you're going to be our servants. So he says, look, you have Saul. Saul was known to be a giant man, wasn't he? He was known to be a powerful man. But Saul wasn't 10 feet tall, was he? Saul wasn't wearing this kind of armor, was he? 126 pounds. So here you have a man challenging the armies of Israel. And the Philistine in verse 10 said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together. He says, I defy the armies of Israel. What's he really saying? When he says, I defy the armies of Israel, who watched over the armies of Israel? He's saying, I defy the God of Israel. I defy you. I defy your king. I defy everything. Challenge me. Send someone down here to fight me. Well, everybody doesn't have to fight. Just send somebody to fight me. I'm big enough, I can take care of any of you. He's showing how powerful he is. In verse 11, a sad scene happens. And Saul and all of Israel heard the words of the Philistines, and they were dismayed. And look at that next word. And were greatly afraid. Fear is contagious, isn't it? You ever seen that happen? One person get afraid of something and they run and tell somebody else, this is bad, this is going to happen, I know it's going to happen. Have you heard about it? And the next thing you know, that's going from person to person. Did we see that in the spies of Israel when they were sent into the land? And the 10 come back and they said, we're not going to be able to take this land. They're giants in the land, they're big and they're strong. And then what happened? The heart of who fell? The heart of Israel fell. They all got discouraged. They all got afraid. They said, how are we going to destroy them? How are we going to defeat these people? The spies said we couldn't do it. Fear is contagious. And this strong king, Saul, they used to say something about Saul. Later on, they'll say it even in a way that made Saul mad. They would say, Saul has slain his thousands, giving credit to Saul. But then the thing that made Saul angry is they said, Saul has slain his thousands, but David his 10,000s. Which would make Saul angry, and Saul would get angry with David over that. But the people understood Saul was a powerful king. But it says even here, Saul was afraid. Now David was the son of Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse. We're kind of backing away from this scene. We're backing away from this scene of violence and war, and we're focusing on a young boy. David was the son of Jesse. Jesse had 8 sons, and a man went among men from an old man in the days of Saul. And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse went and followed Saul to battle. And the names of his 3 sons were Eliab, the firstborn, and then Abinadab, and then Shammah. So here you have his 3 older brothers, and they're all going off to war with Saul. You ever had a sibling leave to go off to do something, to take a job somewhere else? And the people are, you can see them running, waving as they get ready to leave. Or you think about someone who's got a brother going to war. You think about someone who's getting ready to leave, and you see the people as they're about to depart from the city. The people are running out to greet them or to tell them bye and to say that they're going to miss them and say all of those things. Where here you have David, he's watching his brothers leave. It says, and David was the youngest, and the 3 eldest followed Saul. Now the Philistine, he drew near morning and evening and presented himself for 40 days. For 40 days he walks out and says, I defy the armies of Israel. What are you going to do about it? Can you imagine their faces? They're all afraid. Can you imagine standing before a 10-foot man covered in armor saying, I'm going to kill you? They're all afraid. None of them are willing to go forward. And then Jesse, the son of David, or Jesse said unto David, not the son of David, the father of David. Jesse said unto David his son, take now thy brethren an ephah of this parched corn, and 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brethren, and carry these 10 cheeses unto the captain of their 1,000, and look how thy brethren fare, and take their pledge. So he says, I want you to take this food to your brothers. I want you to see what's going on, see how your brethren are doing, see how your brothers are doing, see how this battle is going. Can you imagine how excited David must have been? A young boy. He's heard about all of these things growing up. He heard about Moses holding his hands up, and as long as Moses held his hand up, they were going to win the battle. He's heard all of the victories that have gone on and all of the times where they've taken the land of Canaan. He's heard about all of these stories, and now he's going to get to see that firsthand. He's going to see the power of God firsthand. So as you can see, he raises up early the next morning, verse 20, and he runs out to see his brothers. He left the sheep with the keeper. And then he talks about the people are going forth to battle. For Israel and the Philistines have put a battle in array, and the armies were against army. And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper. And then you see him coming to his brethren, and he's talking to them. And you can just imagine this scene as you can. The brothers are walking. They're walking down towards the Philistines. And then David comes running up to them. Can you imagine the questions he's asking them? Have you seen the Philistines? Have you fought the Philistines? What's going on? Can you imagine the questions a young boy would have at this moment? Think of yourself whenever you were a teenager. What questions would you have had? So you can see David talking to them. And then something happens. Verse 23, and as he talked to them, behold, there came up the champion of the Philistines, Goliath of Gath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words. Now he's been speaking these words for 40 days with nothing. No response. But notice how it says it there. And David heard it. David heard the words. What's different about that? It says, and David heard them. And all of the men of Israel, when they saw that man, fled before him, for they were sore afraid. 40 days later, they are still unwilling to go. And the men of Israel said, have you seen this man come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up, and it shall be that the man who kills him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and he'll give him his daughter, and he'll make his father's house free in Israel. He says, if this person kills this man, whoever does it, he's going to receive a big reward. Can you see the soldiers whispering these back and forth? Did you hear what the king said? King said, if you go out there and you fight this man, you go out here and you fight this giant, you'll be free. If you go out here and you fight this giant, he's going to give you riches. If you go out here and you defeat this giant, he's going to give you all of these things. Can you see them whispering and talking about this situation to each other? Well, you think I should go out there and fight this big giant? I could win all of these things if I defeat him. And then you see the other guy standing next to him saying, yeah, but if you die, you don't get anything. So you can see all of these people and all of these questions, and in a crowd you're going to have all of these conversations going on. And so David hears them, and David's asking, what did you just say? Verse 26, and David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, what shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away this reproach from Israel? You see, David understood this is a reproach to Israel. Because if Israel is following God, and Israel is faithful to God, God says he'll do what? He'll bless them, right? He will take care of them. He will watch over them. If they're faithful to him, he will be faithful to them. And then David says, "For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" Who does he think he is? Coming out here and challenging God, challenging God's king, challenging God's people, challenging God's army. Who does he think he is? And the people answered him after this manner, saying, "So shall it be done to the person that kills Goliath." And then there's something interesting about verse 28. In verse 28 it says, "Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the men that Eliab's anger was kindled against David, and he said, Why'd you come down here? Why comest thou down hither? What'd you come down here for, David?" And he said, "Why comest thou down hither? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness?" You can hear it in his voice, can't you? You just left those few sheep in the wilderness. What are you doing out here on the battlefield? You're not trained for this. You're not prepared for this. I know thy pride and the naughtiness of thine heart, for thou art come down that you might see battle. You ever known anybody like that? His brothers were standing there whenever he was making this challenge, weren't they? His brothers were standing there in fear. But when David steps up and says, "I'll take on this giant, I'll defeat this giant," well, you just think you're somebody special. You have this pride problem. You just come down here to see somebody get hurt. That's what you're here for, David. You can see the mentality. People do that, don't they? People have that mentality that if they see someone else working and they're not working, they want to stop that other person from doing what they're doing because they're making us look bad. We're not doing what they're doing. We've got to stop them from doing what they're doing. So his brother's attacking him. In verse 29, David said, What have I now done? What did I do to you? Is there not a cause? Is there not a reason for me to step up and do this? So his brother's getting mad at him. And people are looking at him saying, "This is what you have to do. If you want that, this is what you have to do." And David said unto Saul, verse 32, "Let no man's heart fail because of him. For thy servant will go, and thy servant will fight this Philistine." Now David is a young boy. In verse 33 it said, "Saul said unto David, Thou art not able to go up against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he has been a man of war from his youth." You ever heard the saying when somebody's talking, says, "He's been fighting longer than you've been born"? Well, he's talking about him. He's saying, look, he's been fighting for all these years. He is a man of war. He's been trained. He's been prepared. He's 10 foot tall. He's wearing armor. He's got a spear bigger than you are. His coat weighs more than you do, David. You're a small boy. You're young. This shows something important for us to remember. Everyone has a place in God's kingdom. Everyone has something to do. With the older people here, they were afraid to take that step. But young David was saying, "I'll do it. I will step forward. I will do what God has commanded us to do. I will stand up and be brave." King Saul was unable to do it, or unwilling to do it. The soldiers were unwilling to do it, but here you have David showing that there is a place in God's kingdom for those who are young. There is something that they can do. So here he says, "You are just a young boy." And David said unto Saul, "Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock." And as you go down to verse 36, I want you to look at how strong David was. Tell me if you would try this. "Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of God." He said, "I killed a bear with my hands. I killed a lion with my hands. And I'm going to take that Philistine down just the same." You think it's going to be because he's so strong and he's so powerful? Does David give himself all the credit for this? No. What does he say in the very next verse? "And moreover, the Lord that delivered me out of the paw and the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine." And Saul said unto David, "Go, and the Lord be with you." David said, God's the one that delivered me out of the hand of that lion. God's the one that delivered me out of the hand of that bear. And God's going to be the one that delivers me out of the hand of that Philistine. And can you see Saul's countenance here? Could you see his face as this young boy is saying, "I trust God. This is going to happen." When the king of Israel should have been the one saying, "I trust God. This is going to happen." So he's showing him. And then verse 38, Saul puts on his armor, and he puts on his helmet, and he puts on all these things, and he puts his sword on him. And can you imagine Saul with his giant self, a large man, and then putting all of his armor on young David? What that must have looked like. And David says, "This isn't proved. This isn't fitted for me." Can you imagine this big heavy armor on this young boy? He's trying to move around with all of this heavy armor on. So what does he do? It says he took it off, didn't he? He took that armor off. And then he goes down to the brook and he takes 5 smooth stones. And he puts them in his bag and he takes his sling and he walks out to this Philistine. Now this Philistine's covered in armor. Don't forget he's 10 foot tall. 126 pound armor. Giant spear just waiting on David. And David doesn't have a piece of armor on. He's got a stone and a sling. And he's walking out towards this giant. Can you see the giant's face? Can you see him scoffing? Can you see him laughing as this young boy carrying a stone and a sling walks up to him? Notice what he says. And the Philistine came down and drew near unto David, and the man that bare the shield went before him. So he's walking out there with a shield, and then Goliath is walking behind him. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth and ruddy and of fair countenance. And the Philistine said unto David, Am I a dog that you come at me with staves? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said to David, Come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air and to the beasts of the field. He's mocking him. You ever been to a basketball game and you see 2 players going at it, they're talking to each other? We call it trash talking. That's what Goliath's doing here. He's saying, David, I'm just going to kill you and let the animals take you. I'm just going to leave you there. He's just looking at him. He's a young boy. What's he going to do? Do you know who I am? I'm Goliath of Gath. You're just a young boy. You're just a young shepherd. You're not even wearing armor. What are you going to do, David? And the Philistine said to David, Come down, I'll give thy flesh to the fowls of the air, to the beasts. Then David said to the Philistine, You comest to me with a sword and with a spear and with a shield, but I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, of the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. And what happened? He took that stone, he took that sling, and all the armor in the world couldn't have protected him, could it? Because who was on the side of David? God. And just as though David faced down his giant and he defeated his giant, there are things that come along in our lives that can be looked at as giants. Now, most likely we're not going to have a 10-foot man staring at us with a spear threatening to kill us. That's not very likely today. But there are things that can come along. Sometimes we're going to have financial giants. Imagine how you would feel if you find out tomorrow you no longer have a job. You're in danger of losing your home. You're in danger of losing your car. You're in danger of not being able to pay your bills. Think that could be a giant in your life? That's a giant. That's a giant walking right at you. Think that'd be easy to get afraid, to be scared? Think it might be easy to fear and to worry? That'd be normal, wouldn't it? But I want you to look at something. I want you to look at 2 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 7. 2 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 7. Turn over there with me if you will. 2 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 7. He says, For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. He says, God does not give us a spirit of fear. He says, be brave. Be courageous. Trust me. And I'll take care of you. We may have family giants or friend giants. When we lose a loved one, can that be pretty giant in our lives? We may be happy they have gone on to paradise. That leaves a hole in our hearts, doesn't it? That leaves us missing someone. That leaves us desiring to be with someone we care about. Can that be a giant in our life? Because we miss someone. There's someone that's no longer there that was once a part of our lives. That can be a giant. We may be fighting with one of our friends. We may be betrayed by one of our friends or one of our family members. And it may be very easy for us to get angry and want vengeance and turn back on them, isn't it? When someone betrays you, how do you usually want to respond? How does it make you feel how you want to respond? God says, trust me. Trust me, I'll take care of it. Whatever problems come our way, trust me and I will take care of it. The giant problem, the biggest problem we will ever face is sin. That's the biggest one. It is that 10-foot tall giant standing in front of us with a spear saying, come on. Because at some point, all of us either have or will sin. There's no way around it. It's going to happen. And the only way that we can possibly be returned to God is through the blood of Jesus Christ. For the wages of sin is what? Death. Romans 6 and verse 23. For the wages of sin is death, because sin separates us from God. So we need the blood of Jesus Christ to cover that sin, to cause us to be forgiven. We need the grace of Jesus Christ. We need to be forgiven, Ephesians 2 and verse 8. That is how we slay the giant of sin. God says, trust me, I'll take care of it. God always provides a way, doesn't He? When there doesn't seem to be a way, there's always a way. God's not going to leave us by ourselves, is He? God, the same God that was there for David. When David said, the same God that delivered me out of the paw of the lion, the same God that delivered me out of the paw of the bear, the same God that delivered me out of the hand of the Philistine is the same God that will deliver us from sin. God says, trust me, I'll make you whole. Trust me, I can take down your giants. Perhaps there's someone here tonight that has never obeyed the gospel of Jesus Christ. Right now you have a giant in your life, and that giant is calling out your name. God says, I can fix it. We have to be willing to obey the gospel. Perhaps there's someone here tonight that has never believed that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, have never repented, have never confessed that He is the Son of God, or perhaps there's someone here who has never been willing to be baptized into Christ for the remission of your sins, Acts 2:38. Or perhaps there's someone here tonight that's struggling with sin. Someone here tonight whose sin is a giant staring them in the face and they need the prayers of the church. Then do not delay. Come now, while we stand and while we sing.
Why do you wait, dear brother? Oh, why do you tarry so long?